people waiting.
Yeah, I'm good to start, Umaima, whenever you can.
Good to start? Okay, sounds good. Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome everyone to another session by IACC. This time we have our guest speaker, Majid Kazmi, who I am sure you are all familiar with. He has been helpful. He has done some sessions for IACC previously as well. And today he's going to be talking to students who are looking at pursuing further education in Canada and otherwise. Students does not mean straight out of college. At any point in time, I think anyone can always go back to studying to pursue their education. A little bit about him. He is an experienced banking professional. He's a social entrepreneur and a diversity and inclusion thought leader based in Toronto. He has also written a book, The First Dancer, so he is a published author. His recent pursuit is working now with uGen, where he is assisting in consulting, helping students who are looking to pursue further education outside of Pakistan, and that's what this session will be focused on. So thank you all for joining in, for being on time. I am going to now pass it over to him to take it from here. We will be taking questions at the end, so if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to either type them in the chat box, or you can wait. We'll open the floor at the end and he will be more than willing to answer your questions. So thank you, Majid, on behalf of IACC, and now I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mama, for that generous introduction. Thank you, everyone, for joining, all the IBA students, alumni, and IBA supporters. I would start with a couple of disclaimers first. This presentation is, as Umaima said, for anyone who's interested in pursuing further education outside of Pakistan. You don't have to be a certain age. You don't have to be from a certain background in terms of what you have studied previously. It can be anyone who is meticulous about future planning and want to plan ahead for the next year or starting end of this year. So I'll be talking about what it means to be an international student. And even before that, what is the process? What are the considerations involved in thinking about studying outside of Pakistan? A couple of disclaimers first. I am not an immigration consultant, so although in the session I'll touch upon a few topics related to visa and study permit application and processing, by no means I claim to be an expert in that area, and that is the reason within our company we have what are called Regulated Canadian Immigration Consultants, or RCICs. So at any point in time during your journey as an international student, if you want to get in touch with a visa expert, we have those people available in-house. The second thing is the session is going to be probably around 20 to 25 minutes in terms of the presentation itself, but feel free to ask any questions, use the chat feature here on Zoom, or at the end of the session we'll have 10-15 minutes hopefully for Q&A. So let's dive right into the presentation. I'll be sharing my screen now. So I hope you all can see the title screen.
Yes, it's good.
Okay, great. So briefly, the contents, I'll be briefly talking about who we are in terms of what the company is, what it does, a very brief introduction of myself, what it means to study abroad from our own experience, having been outside of Pakistan for a long time and working with students on a daily basis. The application process, which means applying to universities, what are the important considerations, what are some do's and don'ts you need to take care of. Number 4, we'll talk about a special offer that uGen Group is launching for IBA alumni and IBA students. And in the end, we'll have some time for Q&A. So first of all, who we are and what we do. These are the members of the core team within uGen Group. So we have Imran Ahmed, who's one of the partners. Myself, I'm a partner looking after client success strategy, which is all about making sure that our students are successful in whatever they want to pursue. Joel is a very experienced immigration consultant. He's also a lawyer. He takes care of all the immigration related matters at the company. Faisal Qasim is our recruitment consultant for the Middle East region, which primarily consists of Saudi Arabia and UAE. And Susan Virtue, again, an immigration expert, a registered immigration consultant, as well as an educationist by profession. We started the company in 2017, so fairly new, which means that we are very nimble, we are agile, and we have what I call a startup mindset. So you don't have to be old or new in terms of when you started the company. It's all about the mindset. The way we work with our clients and within ourselves is very just like a startup. So very quick to respond, very agile, and we have a very lean team, as you can see. We are headquartered here in Toronto, in downtown Toronto. We have offices in Pakistan and UAE as well. We are ICEF certified education consultants, which is something that a potential student should really see and value, because I would say 90% of the education consultants out there, regardless of wherever they are in the world, do not usually have a certification or haven't passed a qualification. That is not the case with uGen. I'll talk more about this. We have different practices. Some of the education institutions in US, Canada, Australia, and UK that we represent through a co-agreement. And these are only some of the 1,200 education institutions. And within Canada, you can see some top-notch institutes like Ryerson University, University of Waterloo. Among colleges, you can see Seneca, Niagara, and so forth. What does studying abroad mean? I don't want to preach to the choir. The fact that you are here talking about studying means that you're partly convinced that there is value in international education. But regardless, just to go through the motion, I'll cover these 4 bullet points. First of all, international education opens pathways to permanent residence in G7 countries. That is particularly true for countries like Australia and Canada. And I'll talk more about this. In Canada, we have what is called a postgraduate work. It means that once you have completed 2 years of education, you can be eligible for up to 3 years of work permit. And once you have completed your first 12 months of experience, in most cases, you are eligible to apply for permanent residence. There are similar programs in other countries as well, which help you become permanent residents and eventually citizens of those countries. Secondly, employees with international education earn more salary than is proven by research. I can share with you later on if you want to. But I mean, it's a fact that international students, once they graduate, they are in line to be earning highest salaries within their companies. And if you look at point number 3, they're also promoted quickly, much faster than their peers who have local education. And there have been a number of studies in different countries to prove that. Lastly, in terms of going up the learning curve and the training that you receive, you become more resilient, become better decision makers, and more adaptable to change, which is a highly sought after skill by employers these days. This slide is just to let you know what's going on in the world with the COVID pandemic. Things are improving. Countries like Canada are opening their borders. There have been some hiccups recently because of the new spike coming from the UK. So some countries have been very cautious. There are some regulations in place, which means that you have to take some precautions before you travel to these countries as international students, but it doesn't mean you are not allowed to. Visa applications are still being processed. People are getting their visas and permits. And along with those precautions, they're being asked to just be careful. There's a requirement that you should test for COVID before you board an aircraft on your way to Canada or other countries. Along with that, of course, there's a requirement for a 14-day quarantine that you have to do. If you look at point number, the second last point, things will definitely become much better. All countries are going to open up their borders once vaccines become more widely available. So it's only a matter of time. And the reason we are gathering today is to plan ahead and to be ready in terms of our mindset, in terms of having the right documents and understanding the process. The earlier you start, the better. Let's talk about the application process. I mean, this is something that I've done myself, so I'm intimately familiar with the process. If you look at the heading, the suggested timelines are for the December 21 or January 22 intakes, which means that we should start ideally 12 months ahead of the intake. It's all about having the right documents in place, taking your IELTS, which is one of the English tests that you are required to take in order to get admission to most of the universities in Australia, in UK, in Canada. There are some other options. Duolingo, for example, is a test that you can prepare for and take. But in terms of the acceptance, if you a comparison, 400 education institutions in Canada accept IELTS compared to 140 for Duolingo. So as your team of consultants, we help you right from the beginning. So we help you in gathering the right documents, which might entail more than what is recommended by the universities. For example, recommendations letter and referral letters. That is something optional, but highly recommended that you have some recommendations from your employers or referral letters from somebody you know and somebody who can vouch for you, preferably employers or your professors. Similarly, there is a document called Statement of Purpose in which you articulate your goals for the future, goals for your career and life in general, which eventually helps you improve your chances of getting admission. Again, an optional document, but in many cases, we recommend that students include that. So if you start that starting next week, for example, February, only then you would have to you would be able to have everything in place to be able to get the December or January intake. The second decision, which is very critical, is finalizing the school and the program. Now, I've seen that students take it lightly because most of the students, depending on where they're coming from, definitely true for Pakistan, are more concerned about being able to get that postgraduate work permit through the education pathway. They don't really care about what they study and which university they end up in. I would say that think long-term for you to find work in Canada, for example, it depends what you have studied, you know, how good you are at a particular skill set that you're promised. You have to pursue an education that aligns with your career plans. And in the next slide, I'll be talking about some considerations that are important for each of these steps and stages. And deciding on a school is one important consideration. So if you do this somewhere in March, the very next year, you should be able to apply for admissions because you have already gathered all your documents in February. And applying for applications is again something that we as consultants help you with. I'll allude to this furthermore in one of the slides, but the advantage of applying through consultants is, among others, you get agency discounts. So for example, in our case, most of the educational institutions offer a 75% discount on application fee. So imagine paying $50 instead of $200 for application fee. But again, in the next slide, I'll be talking about some important considerations when applying to universities. Visa, now you would be surprised that the approval rate for Pakistani nationals for getting visas to many countries, especially Canada, is pretty low. Just to give you an idea, 30% of Pakistanis are able to secure study visa. That's an average of the last 3 years, 30% compared to 84% for China and 89% for India. There could be many reasons for that based on studies that have been done and the research that we have read. The primary reason is students coming from Pakistan are not prepared to share the right documents, and they don't get the right advice, because in Pakistan, unfortunately, we don't have regulated Canadian immigration consultants. These are not licensed or experienced professionals who can help students prepare their application for visa. And as a result, either some of the documents are missing, or in some of the documents, the client is misrepresented, eventually leading to refusals of visa applications. And the reason we have experts within our team is precisely to address this problem. Again, you have to be very careful, and I'll be talking about the important considerations when applying for visa, but there are 2 or 3 things that you have to be vigilant about to ensure your chances of getting a visa. Lastly, travel and accommodation, again, something that we as consultants help you with. Now, this is a very important slide, and my apologies if it's a bit cluttered. The idea is to talk about all the important considerations at each stage of applying for admissions. Not just admissions, but up to starting with preparation. So I said that it's recommended early, and it's not about just gathering your degrees and certificates. It's also about knowing your objectives. When you prepare your documents, you have to understand what your career plan is, and accordingly what kind of program you are looking to pursue. For example, if you're looking to pursue a research-oriented program, you definitely need to have referral letters from your professors. You have to have a research proposal ready that you will submit at the 3rd stage, which is application. But if you are going for a course-based or a taught program, you need to have some basic documents. The sooner you have those documents available, the better. All universities in Canada, at least the ones that I've seen, require you to take IELTS, which is the academic version. And I suggest that you should not consider it just an English language test, because I've seen a lot of people, students applying from all over the world, who are apparently very good in English language, very conversant in spoken English as well as written English, but they do not end up getting the required marks. And the reason for that is IELTS is more than an English test. You have to have great comprehension skills, you have to have great listening skills, and very good writing skills. You should be able to articulate your point of view in the written word. So it's beyond just spoken English. And preparation goes a long way. As a matter of fact, we have some IELTS instructors on board within uGen who can help you prepare for the exam. I would say keep at least 2 months to prepare for your IELTS so that you ensure that you get the required marks. Be organized, very, very important. I've seen clients, scrambling for documents. They don't have the required documents available. A very recent case, somebody sent me a copy of their passport, which was expired, and they needed to renew it urgently, and they barely made it. So very important that you make sure all your documents are valid and available. Number 2, deciding which school to go to and what program to pursue. Again, as I said, cannot be overemphasized that it should be aligned with your career path and your career goal. The good thing is that the countries that we represent, US, Canada, UK, and Australia, there's a bunch of options in pretty much every field that you may want to choose. Recently, there was a successful client who got admission into a 2-year degree program in makeup for film and media. So there's a 2-year program in Canada that teaches the skills of makeup and costume design and prop design for people who want to pursue a career in film and production. There is pretty much everything that you can think of. DLI, the second point in the second column, refers to designated learning institutions. Now you have to make sure that the institution you are applying for is categorized as a DLI. A designated learning institution means a college or university that is approved to accept international students. So you cannot just go on a website of a college or university and see the application process and submit the fee and submit the documents and wait for everything to pan out. You have to make sure that First of all, it can accept international students. And second of all, it is eligible by the government of that country, Canada, for example, to issue you a postgraduate work permit. So not all programs and not all institutions who are DLI are eligible to issue you a work permit upon completion of your studies. Again, that is something that we as consultants can help with when finding programs and universities. Number three, see that the first year tuition fee is typically more than the second year, but that might not be the case for all programs and all universities. It depends on the number of credit hours you take and how you distribute the course load. Eligibility requirements. I've seen people getting too excited about a particular university or college and a particular program without giving due consideration to the eligibility requirements. Some universities require that you have a couple of years of experience in the field before you could apply for the program, typically true for master's and higher level programs. So again, as consultants, we can help you filter the programs that you are eligible for. Right at that stage, when you are making a decision about the university and program, you should see the chances of getting your visa approved for that program. People postpone this consideration for a later stage, but certain programs have a better chances of being approved for a visa. It's a science and an art. It's fairly subjective when it comes to making a guess as to what program would be eligible or would improve your chances of getting a visa. So I would suggest you consult with somebody. Location, housing, transport, and social considerations. If you have family in a certain place within Canada or Australia, people typically prefer those locations because being an international student, especially in the first few months, can be a very lonely proposition. So you have to make sure that you have somebody to start breaking the ice with, a couple of friends that you can make initially in the first few months who can then help you expand your network. So not just the housing and transportation, but the social consideration is also an important one. Stage number 3 is when you actually apply. Look at the intakes for master's programs. Typically in Australia and Canada, also in UK, the most popular intakes are September and January. There are December intakes as well, but most preferred are, I would say, September and January. So prepare in advance, have all your documents ready to be able to submit an application in December or January. Try to have referral letters ahead the period for your referral letters, so the sooner you get it, the better. Try to have referral letters from your professor. Tell the university about what you have been able to accomplish in terms of your academic performance as well as your professional performance. I would suggest that you should have at least 2 referral letters available. Document, that is something that is required for visa processing as well. So you should have it available when you're applying for programs. Some programs require it, some have it as optional document, but again, highly recommended. And there's a particular way of writing your statement of purpose. The idea when writing a statement of purpose for a university is to help them determine that you are the right fit for the program, that you can help improve the outcome of the course that they pursue. So if you are bringing in the required diversity, they would be very happy to bring you on board. So they specifically prepared to onboard clients who come from different countries. Fortunately, Pakistan doesn't have a lot of students studying abroad, especially in Canada. When you compare the number of students coming from China or India, so Pakistan is fortunately in the preferred recruit students. And as a result of that, last year in July, the government of Canada added Pakistan in what is called the SDS program, the Student Direct Stream. So being on that fast track program means that you can theoretically get your visa and permit approved in half or less than half the time that it usually takes for somebody else to get their visa approved. Along with that, when you submit an statement of purpose and the visa officer sees that you are coming from Pakistan, you might have an advantage, especially when applying under the SDA program. So statement of purpose is very important. I will also tell you another reason why it's important when we talk about the visa stage next. Some universities offer conditional acceptance, which means that they allow you to take your IELTS or GMAT or GRE later, and they give you a provisional letter of acceptance ahead of time. There are very few universities in Canada that do that. So I would highly recommend that you have all your documents available and you have taken all your tests, especially IELTS, because very, very few universities in Canada require GMAT or GRE. It's mostly IELTS. So don't try to target universities that offer conditional acceptance, because seats fill in very fast. So the preference would always be given to students who have all their documents available, and you would be left hanging in the waiting list if you don't have everything available. The fourth stage is very, very critical. The reason is that Pakistanis traditionally have not been very successful in getting visas and permits approved. So let me tell you a bit about what a visa and permit means and what the difference is. A study visa is the immigration authority's permission for you to enter the borders. So in case of Canada, once you have a study permit and you board a plane and you enter Canada, at the airport, it means that it's an authorization for you to enter Canada as a student. But that does not mean that you have the permission to pursue a particular program. For that, you need to have a study permit. So just like somebody who's immigrating would have an immigrant visa, but then they would have a work permit as well, which means that while they can enter Canada as an immigrant, they have an authorization to start working for an employer there. So just like that, visa is a separate document and study permit is a separate document, but in terms of the process, you apply for them together and you receive both together. So once you reach the visa application stage, you have an option. Pakistan is one of the 7 countries, as I alluded to, that are eligible to apply under the STS stream. The student direct stream is a fast track process where you can get admission, you can get your visa approved in 20 calendar days. Now that's very, very fast track, considering that people applying from some other countries have to wait for 4 to 6 months to get their visas, especially during these days of pandemic. There's a slide that gives you a comparison of SDS versus regular, so I wouldn't go into the details here. Moving on, you have the option at this stage, apply for visa through a consultant or doing it yourself. There's no right way of doing this. I would say depends on your case. So if you feel that you have a relatively complicated case, some people who have a long gap in their studies, who pursued their last degree 2-3 years ago and want to get back into education, typically hire a consultant to improve the chances of getting a visa. So it depends on your particular case. Very, very important. I think this is the most important point in the whole slide, ties to home country. The singular most important reason why applications for Pakistan are declined is because applicants are not able to prove ties to their home country. Now remember that study visa is a type of permanent residence application, which means that you have to prove that upon completion of your education program, you will be going back to Pakistan, regardless of whatever your plans are. Even if you want to stay back and legally apply for a work permit upon completion of your education, for the purpose of applying for your visa, initially you have to prove that you'll be going back. Experts and immigration consultants can give you a bunch of advice in that area. And as I said, that is the most important consideration because 80% of the applications, I would say more than from Pakistan, are refused because applicants are not of things. It could be social ties. For example, you might have ailing old parents that you have to go back to. It could be financial ties. You have properties that you have rented out and you have to go back and take care of that. So could be a number of reasons. It could be a career plan. Some people have letters from their employer saying they have a particular degree, have better chances of profession. So again, depends on your particular case, but an expert can definitely help you. Proof of funds that you have available to sustain yourself during your education is something that you can show by a number of means. Bank statement is the most popular way of doing that. But in case of SDS, you don't really have to do that, because I will talk about this in the next slide. There's a requirement to open a bank account and buy a guaranteed investment certificate at a Canadian bank for 10,000 Canadian dollars. Now that secures you in terms of having enough funds available during at least the first year of education, and that gives enough comfort to the visa officer that you have the required funds to sustain yourself and to pay for your expenses. Hence, the visa approval process is pretty fast track and not a sure bet, but you definitely end up improving your chances if you have that 10,000 available and go the SDS route. Lastly, under this stage, you have to consider whether you would be traveling with or without accompanying family. Now, typically, traveling with your family is considered as an indication that you are thinking of staying back in the destination country rather than going back. But again, it depends on how strong ties you have to your home country, because it's not possible in all the cases to leave your dependents behind. And again, an expert can advise you how to improve your chances of getting a visa with accompanying family members traveling with you. Lastly, travel and accommodation. I wouldn't talk a lot about travel because it depends on personal preferences. Typically, we say that once you have your visa approved, you should book your travel right away. In terms of accommodation, there are a number of considerations. We have partnership with accommodation providers in all provinces in Canada, and we are tying with some accommodation providers in other countries as well. There are different types of accommodations that you can choose from. Typically, there are on-campus and off-campus accommodation. On-campus accommodations are, of course, more expensive, but it depends on what your budget is, what kind of convenience you're looking for. So time and cost go hand in hand. Availability is a very important consideration. So if you are applying for December intake, typically accommodations fill up very fast. So by beginning of November, it would be very challenging for you to find an accommodation, especially on campus. So the sooner you apply, the better. The same rule of thumb applies that does to travel, which means that once you have your visa approved, you should go right ahead and book your travel, as well as reach out to people who can help book accommodation for you. Location and commute, of course, again related, the farther away you are from the campus, the more time and more expense it would take for you to commute. Amenities at the premises, at the location that you are targeting. There are some self-serve locations. There are a lot of student accommodations. They're pretty much like apartment complexes. Some are like hotels where you get all the amenities that you would typically get in a 3-star or 4-star hotel. Again, the more you spend, the more facility you can get. Lease terms, whether you want to go for a short-term lease, some students prefer that they go for a 2 or 3 months agreement while they're looking for better accommodation in those 2 or 3 months. So again, it depends on what you end up finding for yourself. This slide basically helps you compare the two processes for applying for visas in terms of processing time, IELTS, tuition fee, GIC requirement, medical, and biometrics. So a very clear comparison, self-explanatory. You can see that the processing time differs a lot compared to 1 to 3 months for regular process, which might take 4 to 6 months these days during the pandemic, compared to 30 days in case of SDS. Again, 20 days is something that Canadian government has published on their website, but these days it definitely takes more than 20 calendar days. on an average 30 to 45 days if you have all your documents available and you have a strong case. IELTS for regular visa application, the Canadian government doesn't ask you to prove that you have taken the test, but for SDS, IELTS is a requirement, and you need to get 6 marks in all the bands: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. We recommend that you try to aim for 6.5, but students coming from good universities like IBA Karachi shouldn't really worry about that, because even with minimal preparation, you should be able to get 7.5 plus. But remember that while IELTS is a requirement for visa application, it is not a requirement for regular visa application, only for SDS. Whereas for most master's program, the university has its own requirement, which is, as I said in one of the previous slides, is IELTS academic. So there are 2 kinds of IELTS tests that you can take: general and academic. General is usually relevant for people going for business visas or immigrant visas, whereas for education purposes, you almost always take IELTS academic, unless the education institution itself says that they're fine with general. So the recommended course of action then is that you take your IELTS academic to apply for an education program at a university and use the same test result to apply for SDS visa as well, so that you don't have to take 2 different tests: academic for application to admission and general for SDS. In terms of tuition fee, if you're applying under the regular visa application process, you typically pay a deposit to the university, which could be around 10% to 25% of first year tuition fee. But if you are applying under the SDS stream, the government requires that you pay your first year tuition fee upfront, and you have to show proof of that, which typically is included in the letter of acceptance that you get from your university, or the receipt that you get from the university once you have paid your fee, and that document is used to process your visa application under the SDS process. GIC, it's pretty much like a term deposit in Pakistan. So all these scheduled authorized banks in Canada can issue a guaranteed investment certificates online to people applying from any of those 7 countries that are eligible for the SDS process, including Pakistan. So the process is very simple. I wouldn't go into the detailed line to one of the scheduled banks operating in Canada. You start with opening a checking account. You upload a copy of your passport. In a couple of days, you get your checking account, which is your current account, opened in that bank. You get a account number. You take that account number to your own bank in Pakistan and ask them to transfer funds, which is this 10,000 Canadian dollars, along with processing fee for the Canadian bank, if there's any. You transfer these 10,000 through a regular wire transfer process to your bank in Canada. And once the Canadian bank receives these funds, they open a GIC account and issue you a letter of confirmation that you have a $10,000 investment with a Canadian bank. You then use that document to apply for visa under the SDS process. So again, very important to apply early, because this process itself might take a couple. Medical is something that is mandatory for both regular as well as SDS stream. The only difference is that you are allowed to take medical upfront when applying for visa under the SDS process. In case of regular process, you typically receive a letter from the immigration authorities asking you to go and get your medical done. Biometric, conversely, is something that you have to wait for. So once you have submitted your application for visa, you wait for immigration authorities to get back to you with an instruction to then go and take your biometric. Along with that, these days you have to take a COVID test, which is included in the medical examination package that you typically go to a licensed medical practitioners in Karachi, Lahore, or Islamabad. So there are authorized locations in all the three cities where you can go and get your medical done, and COVID-19 test is part of it. Very importantly, what is it that we as education consultants offer to IBA? So I would say a very compelling proposition, because if you look at these 6 points, um, it's a win-win situation. First of all, we provide you a free consultation starting with a Zoom call, half an hour, talking about your particular case, seeing what are the strong points when applying to a university or a college, as well as when applying for a visa. So we help you in providing a sort of an advanced assessment to see what kind of chances you have of getting a visa approved for a particular kind of program at a college or university. So that half an hour consultation followed up by email correspondence is something that sets you up for success pretty early in the process. Along with that, applying directly means that you have to pay the full application fee to the university that you're applying to. It could be a couple of universities. If you want to apply to 2 universities, if you want to apply to 3 universities, it would mean $100 multiplied by 3, so 300 Canadian dollars for the application fee. For most of the universities, more than 80% of them, from the 1,200 that we represent, they offer up to 75% discount for application fee. So I mean, it's a win-win proposition applying through an agent in that way. Number 3, we provide you a detailed program search report, which cuts short the process of researching and going to each university's website and finding the information that is relevant for you, from a few weeks or months to a few hours. So we provide you a comprehensive research report after the Zoom call, the half an hour consultation that we have with you. It could be a 10-page report, it could be a 60, 70-page report that we can provide you in a matter of hours that lists pretty much all the details that you need to know before shortlisting a particular program or university, including what the program entails in terms of the courses, what the fees or fee structure is, not just the tuition fee, but other fees as well, what the eligibility criteria is in terms of the minimum GPA you should have in your BBA or MBA or BSc or whatever you have done previously, and also the minimum IELTS score and the deadlines. Very important that in that report, based on your target intake, we tell you what the submission deadline for each of those programs at each of the universities are. So again, that service is included in the overall consultation fee that you pay to us. There is a free initial assessment from a regulated Canadian immigration consultants. This service is typically very expensive if you are reaching out to a licensed lawyer or immigration consultant for an assessment. First of all, they don't provide you an initial assessment before you sign up with them as a formal client and sign an agreement. But we, through our agreement with our partner RCICs, we can provide an upfront assessment through email based on your particular circumstances and situation, which comes very handy when applying to the right program that would improve your chances of getting a visa. So this upfront assessment is very useful to help you decide what program to apply for. Because as I said, different programs have different chances of being approved for visas. Settlement services, we provide you end-to-end settlement services. We help you open up bank accounts. We help you with travel and accommodation. We provide you free airport pickup when you arrive to Canada, and a bunch of other services. And the way uGen is different in terms of the end-to-end services we provide is we also provide you employment consulting. So we don't let you hang in a limbo once you have completed your education. We help you with getting on board with the right employer, and we set you up for success when applying for different positions. We help you with your resumes or CVs. We help you, coach you for your interviews. We even connect you with potential employers in your field. And the special offer for IBA is that we are providing a 50% discount to anyone who is either currently pursuing a degree at IBA or who has completed a degree program and is now an IBA alumnus. So I can go into the details of what that means, but typically for IBA graduates and IBA students, that means paying only 10,000 rupees, which would include everything that I've talked about. So all those services for 10,000 rupees is our special offer for uGen, which barely covers our cost, but the whole idea is to help, for me, it's to help my alma mater and to help you be successful in your education plans. So what are the next steps? What is it that we would expect you to do if you want to come on board? First of all, there's an engagement form, an online form available on our website. I can share the link, but the link is available here on this slide as well. So whoever decides to reach out to me, I will provide you the link to fill up that form and the details of how to pay the fee so that you can formally come on board as a client. Once you are on our system, we ask you to book consultation time with us, the initial 30-minute Zoom or WhatsApp call in which we talk about your particular circumstances, your background, your future goals, what you want to pursue in terms of education, but also what your career plans are, so that we can provide you some counseling about what programs you should pursue. Once that is settled, we then go back and work on the program search report. And within a couple of days, in most cases, we are able to send that back to you, which again, as I said, is a very comprehensive list of programs, including all the details about the university or college, as well as the program that that would help you shortlist a couple of programs. So once you have shortlisted the program, we stay in touch with you because we apply on your behalf. We have a system that is connected with the admission systems of all the universities and colleges. So again, it's a fast track process, apart from the 75% discount that you do get if you decide for us to apply on your behalf. It is a very fast track process, which means that we are just an email or a phone call away from each of the representatives at these universities and colleges. Typically, if you apply to a university and you send them an email, you have to wait for weeks to get a reply to that email. But because we are authorized agents on panel of those universities, we have a designated representative at each of those colleges or universities that help us respond to questions for each particular case that we submit. So I think that's pretty much it. We would, Umama, I think I hope I wasn't able to, extend beyond the allocated time. Just a view of our office premises in Toronto. This is our head office here. As I said, we have offices in UAE and in Karachi as well. The number of programs and universities that we represent in Canada, there are 40,000 programs in Canada, US, UK, and Australia at 1,200 education institutions. Some of them are high schools and schools, so part of them would be colleges and universities, but still you have a lot of choices. And I would open the floor for question and answers now.
All right, thank you so much, Majid. That was actually quite detailed, and I think it was very beneficial. For those, I feel, who didn't tune in, so we will have this whole session up on our YouTube channel, and then it will be there permanently for anyone to have access at any point in time. I know we're short on time, but if anyone has any questions, you are more than welcome to unmute yourself and ask, or if you are comfortable typing it in the chat box, please go ahead. I'll give everyone a couple of minutes. Otherwise, I think we can end it here, but let me just wait it out. But from my side, I would just want to say thank you, because that was quite detailed, actually. And even the recording, I think, will be quite beneficial because of the presentation. I think that was pretty good. So thank you for that. Let's wait a minute or so. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Assalamualaikum, Majid. This is Wajahat from Vancouver. Just wanted to ask you a question, because they're considering the situation in the Middle East and all. There are a lot of people who are already working and would like to move to Canada. And since the disposable income there is pretty heavy, so they don't mind investing in education and moving to Canada, and then subsequently probably getting PR card and all. So from that perspective, I'm not sure whether this is a question that you can answer, or probably this is more for the visa consultant, that for people who have graduated, like I have many friends from IBA who want to move, but of course they are in my age group, which is like mid-40s. what are the options for those people to actually get into a university and move with their family? Would you have an answer, or probably this is a question for a visa consultant?
So Vajat, is your question specific to people who are, at around mid-40s, or people who are outside of Pakistan right now? Because you said people who are in Middle East. So is the question specific to people who are outside of Pakistan, or who want to apply later on in their journey?
Both. Like people are like, I was in Middle East and I had other option to move to Canada. That's fine. But people who are in Middle East from IBA and they want to move to Canada, would
that's great. Okay,
route...
so I understand where you are coming from. Okay, got it. So to answer both parts of the question separately, first of all, one important aspect of applying from outside of Pakistan is that you are not eligible for the SDS process, because the requirement is there are a couple of things that you need to have. First of all, you need to be a legal resident of Pakistan, which means that you have to either have a citizenship card or a passport and a proof of residence in Pakistan. And you have to be physically residing in Pakistan for the last 6 months before you apply for visa. So those conditions don't hold true, at least the second one doesn't, for people who are coming from Middle East. So one point is you cannot apply through SDS process, which is not a bad situation in any way. You can still apply through the regular paper-based process. The second question, the fact that you are deciding to go back to school later in your life is not in any way considered a negative in Canada. There are people who are in their mid-60s studying alongside people in their mid-20s. So it is in no way looked down on. There might be certain considerations for the visa officer when there's a long gap and you have a family that you are planning to bring to Canada. It might be looked as just an opportunity for you to move across the border and settle in Canada. Again, it depends on case to case, what kind of ties you can prove to your home country. It's very difficult for people coming from Middle East to prove that they will be going back to Middle East. So it's a tricky business. And again, that is something that a visa consultant might be able to help you with. But the chances of getting a visa approved depends on how you position yourself if you're coming from that background. In your mid-40s, coming from Middle East means that you don't have nationality of that country, whether you are in UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, or any of those countries, which means that eventually you would want for yourself and your family to settle in a North American country. That is the way the visa officer looks at it. So again, the chances of getting your visa approved are slightly less. But in terms of the education gap, the universities don't mind it. It might be a consideration, a negative consideration potentially for the visa officer. I hope I'm able to answer your question.
No, absolutely. No, thank you, Majid. I mean, it's a very generous offer that you're giving to IBA students. That's amazing. Good to know that you continue to kind of help the alumnus across the globe. Pleasure. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Of course. Thank you.
So I don't know if we have any other questions, but with that, I will say my last thank you to Majid again. And once this YouTube video is up, we will share the link with our IBA community. We will share the link with you, Majid, and it will be available for viewing further on as well. So thank you again. Thank you for everyone who tuned in. We appreciate your time. Yes, sir. Sorry, go ahead.
I would just like to leave everyone with my email address. So in case anybody would like to reach out to me directly, my email address is pretty much the same as my name. So I will go back to the intro slide where you can see the exact spelling of my name. So my email address is Majid, MAJID .Kazmi, KAZMI @ugen.ca. It's not .com, it's .ca. So Majid.Kazmi @ugen.ca. I would recommend that you note it down if you want to reach out to me after this webinar. And once again, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Umama, for hosting.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to comment that that was a fantastic presentation. And I wish a lot of people can
Thank you,
see
sir.
that on the YouTube. Majid Kazmi is a very reputable person here in Canada. I
Thank you so
always
much.
admire him. He's a young man and he's working very hard, and he will help you all the way. I just want to say that.
Not a lot of people still call me young, but thank you for being generous with those.
And you are younger than me, so you are young for me.
Okay, amazing.
Thank you.
Again, thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you so much, Majid, as well. From on behalf of IACC, we will keep you posted for future sections. Thank you so much.
Take care, everyone.
Bye bye. Thank you.